my sense is that it's a no-brainer on the next ramp to get to 100, 120, and maybe to 170 or 180. And I mean, will I sell maybe just a couple of coins at that level to have a little extra cash, maybe, and pay the tax? I mean, but I'm not sure. I mean, I have to wait and see. Yeah.
There's so much there you just said that we could go down. I love it.
Yeah.
One of the things you said that really struck with me is something that when I talked to Greg Foss, he said something very similar to what you said about how even though the price is higher today, the risk in many ways is much lower than what it used to. For those that may not understand that, and not only that, but that the upside's also higher because the probability of success is higher.
That's your Lindy effect, right?
Yeah, Lindy effect. So for those that, because you say that, when I say that to someone in the traditional finance space, typically their brain shuts down,
right. Or they want to argue with you,
or they want to argue.
Yeah.
So you come from that traditional finance space. How is it that this is different than all these other assets? Because typically, when you have increased risk, you have increased potential upside.
Right.
But with Bitcoin, it's almost as if as it grows, its risk declines and its upside goes up. So how would you articulate why is it? How is that the case?
It's counterintuitive, and I think the thing that and actually Paul Tudor Jones said it, and it was on Twitter recently. I thought he really said it nicely. If you think about anything that there is in the world, higher price will bring in more of it. So if oil was at $500 a barrel, we'd be poking for oil everywhere in the everywhere in the world, and someday it will be there. But corn. I mean, you push up the price of something, and there is a supply response. People make more of it, which then brings the price back down.
It's a free market.
Yeah, it's a free market, right? This is the only thing or commodity ever invented that I'm aware of where a higher price does not affect the supply. The supply is capped. And therefore it's by its very nature deflationary, which is Jeff Booth's point, which fits in with the way the world is going because everything should be trending to zero, as our productivity increases. And, it's just, that's the thing that I think causes, people have to kind of grok that. They got to actually think that through and go, hang on a second, you're right. There's never really been anything like this. And that's why, I do kind of think it's spiritually God-given. I think God gave it to us to save us from all our evil ways, and we're gonna, it's gonna wipe out fiat, and we're gonna go back to having a much better system because it'll be based on fairness. That's the big macro. But I think the micro is just look at it as a technological innovation. We created absolute digital scarcity, and now all we need to do, or all that needs to happen, and it will happen because the stock to flow will soon be lower than gold at the next halving. All that needs to happen is that people need to come to the conclusion that, digital scarcity in this form is a really good thing. I want some of that. And they're doing it. Dogs are eating food. We know the number of addresses with one coin in them has gone to an all-time record. We know the number of, you look at any metric, it's growing.
Hash rate, wallets,
any of them. Well, they're all growing. And people, I always when I look at an investment thesis, a lot of people, people say, well, what could go wrong? What could you be wrong about? What would really give you great concern? And I think the only thing I could see that would give me great concern would be a technical failure of some kind, a change in the consensus. And I just wanted to slap this guy. I was at an event, it was actually in Britain, one of Peter's events, where a guy said, well, maybe the 21 million really isn't the right number. And I just wanted to, pound. I just wanted to.
This was a Bitcoiner.
Yeah. I just wanted to pound. I was like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? That's the core value proposition. So if I saw a lot of people starting to talk that way, I'd be like, that's not good, right? And then the final one would be if it just got so dull and there were no use cases, no new adoption, and by the way, the adoption does go up and down a little bit with the price. And sadly, there are people who FOMO into a $68,000 price and then watch it drop to 15 and say, I was bagged, and blow it out, and they're angry and bitter, and that's just the nature of this asset. But Swan has done a nice job of teaching people the dollar cost average, and anybody who's in it, if they're trying to sell it, you try to explain what it is. I've had several investors who didn't get it, who I told them about it. They said, well, okay, I'm going to go buy a bunch right now. I said, no, stop. You're going to start buying a regular amount every week, and you're going to do that for years, and I'm glad in some of those cases. I was telling them that when it was at 30 or 40, before it went to 15. And, they're fine now. They're back, they're back whole because they got so much at 15 and it's back to 30. But, if they'd FOMO'd into it at 30 and had gone to 15, and
that would have messed with their emotions.
Exactly.
They would have panic sold.
They might have panic sold, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to really understand what it is. And I guess it just goes back to there's never been anything like this that I'm aware of, right? I mean, it's unique.
That's people. when I try to explain this to people, what I tell them is that I've talked with so many people I know are intelligent online and now in person,
right.
And every single time I ask them, "What's your biggest concern?" and in what ways could we be wrong?
Right.
Because I think people outside the Bitcoin bubble fail to realize that they look at us talking to each other,
we're all crazy.
And they think we're all crazy, and they think we're an echo chamber saying, "Oh, we have to be
bias,
confirmation bias," and that's probably true to a very large extent.
Yeah, there is some for sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, I talk to people for hours trying to what do we have wrong, and it's the same thing that you're saying, that I can't find anything that even competes with that digital scarcity, and the biggest error is some form of error in the code, and none of us have found it, and none of us know in that.
A global EMT event where all electronics were shut down would probably mess it up. My guess is what would happen though is the core developers would say, okay, we're going to roll this back a day, and we're going to start. The new chain is going to start with whatever you had on the prior day at midnight. That's what you got now, and these other blocks got lost or something. I don't know.
Well, whatever the consensus, whatever the majority consensus thinks is equitable, depending on the scenario.
Down to it. Which nodes are going to accept? Which is the longest chain, and then the most nodes that are going to accept it. That's really the bottom line, right?
Yeah, no, that is the bottom line. So I love your dogs and dog food metaphor. One of the things I think is fascinating is thinking about how there are 28 million addresses with $10 or more Bitcoin, and so and so if we assume that there's roughly 10 million Bitcoiners in the world, like a third of them, I want to hear your take. How quickly do you think these things unravel? Because you said previously that you were wrong too early in 2008. And that's what radicalized you, to use your word. So do you think that potentially now, as we talk about the demise of fiat and as we talk about the adoption of Bitcoin, do you think perhaps in a similar way we are too early in that sense? Or do you think that this time is different? And if so, why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, so, well, I don't know where... Yeah.
So let me back up. Yeah, so technical difficulty there. The question being... We talked about how in 2008 you thought it was the end of fiat. You thought that the subprime housing bubble and the great financial crisis, you thought that could be the end of fiat. Yeah, you thought that was it. And now, more or less, both you and I and many, many other Bitcoiners think more or less in the next years, decade or so, maybe less, maybe more, but basically we're coming up on the end of the fiat monetary standard here. And I'm curious, how has your opinion changed in relation to that? And do you think possibly that in the same way that you were incorrect in 2008, we could be incorrect now?
Look, it's I'm human. I make tons of mistakes, so it's certainly possible that I'm wrong again. I don't think I rate the possibility that I'm absolutely wrong as being extremely low.
Bitcoin is incredible, and it's incredibly important, which is why it means a lot that you're watching this video and you're taking the time. I do this because I believe it is a really, really important innovation that we've discovered a way to not have a single point of failure at global base layer money. See, fiat money, political currency units, and gold, all other forms of money up to this point in history have had a single point of failure. This has been the largest monetary problem in human history for the last 4,000 years. And now we have Bitcoin, and Bitcoin solves that single point of failure problem. And now, therefore, we have a new single point of failure problem, and that is how do we custody and store that Bitcoin properly for the long term in a safe and secure way that brings peace of mind. That's why I work at the Bitcoin Advisor. If you were to be hit by a bus, does your spouse, do your kids, do your loved ones and beneficiaries know how to access your Bitcoin? Do you have a proper self-custody storage method to where there is no single point of failure? Not from yourself, not from your seed device, not from where your seed phrase is stored. Have you considered these questions? Have you gotten your UTXOs managed? Do you have jurisdictional arbitrage? Have you considered all the trust, taxes, and estate planning requirements that are associated with becoming a high net worth person? Because if you are buying Bitcoin right now, you are going to become a high net worth person. Are you prepared for the amount of Bitcoin you have to skyrocket in value 2x, 5x, 10x, or 100x eventually? That's the time horizon you should have. And so you need to be preparing today for that future. How are you going to custody your Bitcoin? How are you going to leave that Bitcoin for your future generations? Because after all, that's what we do this for, right? You're buying Bitcoin for your kids. You're buying it for your grandkids. So I highly recommend you start thinking in those long-term time periods now, because companies are coming, charities are coming, high net worth individuals are coming, and all of them are going to realize that having an allocation to a multi-sig collateral custody vault is going to be something that is of serious consideration for them. So once you understand Bitcoin is a beautiful innovation for not having a single point of failure at the base layer currency, now you have to start seriously considering, how do I have my custody stored where there is no single point of failure? Okay, if you want to learn more about that, please click the link in the description. I have dozens of pages of free educational content for you and videos. I'm happy to help in that free way. And then if you want individual help, I'm also happy to help you join the Bitcoin Advisor, where you can be an ongoing client. You can become one of my clients, and I'd be happy to help you in the years to come to make sure your Bitcoin's protected, to where no matter what, no matter if thieves or scammers or spammers or yourself or your family or whoever, no matter whether it's due to theft or loss, misallocation, misplacement, or just other mistakes, I'm happy to help you.